Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of Reality Check here on Talking Jets. I'm Matt O'Leary, hanging out with my buddy Jeremy Jets Chaos. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Here we are a week later. Wow. I guess the smoke is cleared. The little pieces and bits from the explosion have settled onto the ground. And there's nothing but a few janitors, one named Nick Shine, just kind of sweeping up and mopping up.
I have a bone to pick with you, Jeremy. I think the Jets draft was fine until you came in and started jinxing everything by talking about guys who were good, guys who you liked who kept flying off the board.
Yeah, but a couple of them didn't, and we didn't take them anyway, which is what's weird. I remember that at one point, but what that was the crazy thing is that, the thing that stands out for me the most was, more than anything, it just blows my mind, is that Royals was still on the board when we took Smith, I think.
He definitely was.
And I just don't understand. I don't understand why every NFL team let him slip so far. I understand he had a foot injury, but it's not the kind of injury that's permanent. Like, it's not like he's fine. It wasn't like he tore an Achilles. There was no question mark on him. And you're going to take this kid out of Georgia. And I don't know, man. Royals to me was a second round possible pick, like a guy at the end, near the end of the second round. Maybe he'll make it to the first few picks in the third round. For him to be there, and then we don't take him, and we took this kid that can't catch a football. I just mind-boggling.
Yeah, so we're a week out. Last time we did a show, we were previewing night one and talking about, guys would be excited about. And, it's been a few days now, so I don't think we have to go like each player. What do you think about, Membu? What do you think about Mason Taylor? Like, I think we should just kind of do overarching themes or takeaways from this Jets draft. And I thought they did a really good job on the first two nights of betting on young talent. And while I fully admit I was hoping in the third round that they would go for a wide receiver after landing Armand Membu and Mason Taylor. After the initial shock set in for me, A.Z. Thomas, I think, is a good player and they got good value. So the point being, day 1 and 2, young, thought they read the board well, got good value. Day 3 was a little weird for me. You mentioned Arian Smith at the top. That is one of the more bizarre selections in the draft. Just not only Jets, just overall. Someone who's projected as a 6th, maybe 7th rounder going at the top of the 4th round. And then, some of the trade ups. I like Malachi Moore. I think that was their best pick on day 3. But what was some of your reactions or takeaways to the class as a whole here?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I started with that day 3 pick, 110, was because if they take Royals in that spot, like you're saying, that wide receiver, right? If they would have taken him in that spot, it's kind of like the JJ thing all over again. Like, we don't take a defensive edge at 4 or 10, and then somehow we find a way to get the guy we could have picked in the top 10 anyway. Well, Royals was that to me. He could have been a third round pick. And then Thomas was just the biggest steal of the draft because, oh my God, we got all 3 positions we wanted and we got this guy. Overall for a draft, I think it's fine because overall, right, we're puzzled about day 3, but I fully believe that Membu and Mason Taylor both have fairly high floors, like in the sense that I don't think either of those are going to bust. How good they're going to be, we're going to find out. I think Membu obviously has an extremely high ceiling. He might end up being the best offensive tackle in the draft. Like 3 or 4 years from now, we might look back and it might turn out that Membu was the best offensive tackle in this draft. I really believe that. The potential for that is there. Mason Taylor, same thing. Ceiling. There was 6 tight ends in this draft who all could end up being the best tight ends. Mason Taylor, not as safe as a Tyler Warren. I get it. He doesn't have that high floor that Tyler Warren has, but he certainly has all the potential to be a very good, excellent tight end. If those 2 spots hit, I mean, it's a great draft just on that, based on our history, right? I mean, if you hit twice, if you got our right tackle of the next 10 years alongside Olu, and he's like a solid guy who makes a couple of Pro Bowls, for example. And then you get Mason Taylor, who's 700 yards receiving, whatever, good blocker, really good tight end, top half of the league. That's a good draft. The Azariah Thomas pick, I understand people being upset I understand that it wasn't positional. It wasn't a positional pick. There's a real chance that he was and will turn out to be the best player on the board at that time when we look back at that pick. This is a kid with the potential not to be just a good cornerback. He has CB1 potential. Okay, this kid honestly could have went in the second round without question. There were not, it wasn't just Dom C. There are a lot of people, Dylan Tinnerman, like tons of people that I was in Mobile with, tons of people had this kid rated super, super high. Dom C, he was like in his top 20. There were many people had him in their top 30. So if this kid turns out to be an all-pro cornerback or a CB1 type cornerback alongside Suss, and those other two hit, then this was a freaking grand slam draft.
100%. I think, and I will fully, put my hand up and say I'm part of this. I don't like the Arian Smith pick, and there's a lot of people who don't like it. But as you mentioned, I think you have to weigh what they did on the first two nights significantly more than what they did on day 3. And if, as you mentioned, I think those are totally fair and realistic expectations for each one of those guys, starting with Membu. If he's, your starter at right tackle for the next 8 years and really good, win. If Mason Taylor's a league average to better tight end in round 2, win. And if even just say one of the two between AZ Thomas or Malachi Moore become starters on this team, then you got 3 starters and you did your job. If you're coming away with a draft class and finding 3 starters, that's fine. Not every single draft is going to be 2022 where you come away with, 2 rookies of the year, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall, and so on.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the other thing we got to think about this draft is I think most of us that are being realistic knew going into this draft that we weren't filling every hole, and that unfortunately what we were left with, it's not 2020. We weren't left with nothing, like after the Jamal Adams trade, and we didn't even keep Marcus May. Like we weren't left with nothing, but we had enough holes that was going to take. There was no way we were going to fill all the holes with young studs or stars or day one starters from the draft. It just wasn't going to happen. So if you look at it as a part 1 and then maybe evaluate what these guys are doing after next year's draft and look at the part 2 and then look where we are as a roster, then you could start seeing what this new regime is up to.
I think that's totally fair. I see Dante super chat. We're going to get to his comment and then the rest of the chat in a moment here. I had one more question for you before we hop into this. You mentioned that they weren't going to fill every hole, which totally agreed. The one thing, though, I will say I'm surprised with, we've spent so much time talking about how deep the defensive tackle class was, or interior defensive lineman, and they didn't pick a single one. And they added someone or 1 or 2 guys as UDFAs, but I was very surprised to see them not draft an interior defensive lineman.
Yeah, I agreed. I mean, Joshua Farmer was a guy that was there pretty deep. I think he was there even after the Smith pick, right, when we took the edge. So he lasted really or even if he wasn't, who cares? We could have traded up. We could have said, screw the edge that we ended up taking. We could have taken those 2 last picks, traded up, and grabbed a guy like Joshua Farmer. We don't know what's going to happen with that 6th-round pick, that defensive tackle that we did end up taking. I mean, which I think we did, or was that a linebacker? I was a linebacker with an edge. A linebacker.
Yeah, linebacker was Kiko Mauingoa and then Tyler Barron.
It's a weird thing that they didn't take one, because even if they take one next year and say, okay, that was the one we didn't address this year, we couldn't address everything. Yeah, but this was the draft that you could have addressed it in the 4th or 5th round. Like, why wouldn't you just address it now? It seems like such a logical thing. I guess they have a lot of faith in the kid they brought in from Kansas City to play early down defensive tackle for us. He was a nose tackle. He's a big fatty run stopping guy. I guess they have faith in doing like a rotation pass down situations. You got LT3, who I think actually had a very good year and rated very highly in passing situations. But it's kind of weird because there was so much positional value with all of our picks after the 3rd round that could have been used on a defensive tackle. But again, we could be puzzled by that. We could be a little disappointed and questioning that. But I still think you have to wait until after next year. You have to, for a new regime, you got to wait 2, then 3rd year, like after 2 full off seasons, because you got to see how it falls. Like, what if that rotation works really well? And then they add in a perfect piece also, right? To be part of that rotation. Like we could be puzzled, we could be confused, we could think in our opinions, I would have done it differently. I definitely would have grabbed the defensive tackle, but it doesn't mean you throw out the regime and say fire them. And I think that you're not doing that, but I think there are some people that are like already calling them failures and they're garbage. And I think it's way too soon to be that extreme.
Yeah, that is way too far to be that extreme. I agree with you on that. Let's get to Dante's chat. He says, I know this is pointless, but just imagine it. Taylor surprises us and get 1,000 receiving yards. I mean, please sign me up for that. I don't think that's where my expectation is in year one, but I don't know. Can he catch 40 passes and be 450 to 550 receiving yards in year one and then show signs of growing after that? I think that's a realistic and fair ask.
Yeah, I mean, we have to understand that Bowers is, he was in some people's opinion generational. And I understand he came out and, obviously delivered 1,000-yard season. And I know Sam Laporta did it. So now there's an expectation that it could be done because it could. And there's may even be some people who believe, well, if you're going to be a guy at that caliber, then you have to have that kind of year. I think you do have to look at situation. We are going to be a running team. We do have Garrett Wilson that will be there, hopefully healthy the full year, unlike the Raiders where Bowers, Devontae Adams was gone. He was unhappy. I think he only played like 6 games, and then he was gone, and the Raiders really didn't have anyone, right? So he was pretty much the main target. So it's going to be really, really difficult. And then you have to also understand that some tight ends, just develop longer than others. And we've seen tons of great tight ends develop over the course of their first few years, not just come out as 1,000-yard receiver. The only way I would see this possible is if Mason Taylor becomes Justin Fields' check down best friend. Like he's just checking down to him constantly. But I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if we want like it to be a situation where it's because he just had to check down to him all the time, unless it's successful and we get first downs and win games. Like if we win games, that's all that matters. But it's the only explanation I could say. If you came and said Mason Taylor got 1,100 yards receiving, Jeremy, how could that have happened? I would say, well, it means Justin Fields played a lot better and took a giant step in his career, a giant step forward. And Mason Taylor was the check down guy. Like it was, if Garrett's not open, just throw a slant to Taylor. And for some reason that was able to work all season long.
Yeah, I hope that, again, I hope that's the case. If my guess right now, and obviously subject to change, but I feel like Garrett will lead the team in receptions and targets. I'm going to say Breece too, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mason Taylor ends up third above any of the other wide receivers not named Garrett Wilson.
Very true, because Lazard is a huge question mark because the only good play we saw from Lazard was when Rodgers was playing. So, and I want to point that out. I understand the first year Lazard was a Jet. He was terrible. I get it. I'm with everybody. But I also want to point out, before his injury last season, Lazard was a very good receiver for us. I mean, he had a lot of touchdowns. He was making big plays. He was good. Not good for a WR1, but for a WR2, he was actually okay. He was better than Mike Williams. He was doing more than Mike Williams was. I just want to remind people of that. So we don't know what we're going to get year 3 of Lazard, but we have to assume no Aaron Rodgers, not a very good Lazard. We also don't know about Malachi Corley. Right. We don't know if it was a coaching thing, if he's going to come in and it's going to be his real rookie year or something where it's going to be the birth of a new receiver. We don't know. But Breece Hall being the number 2 receiver on our team is definitely extremely possible. If anything, I think he was incredibly underutilized as a receiver last year. And we've talked about that, how disgusting it was that after he did that go route and got that touchdown, we only tried it one more time all season. Inexcusable.
Completely unexcusable. And then even worse, the year prior, it took till after the Giants game for Nathaniel Hackett to go, oh yeah, I didn't realize Breece Hall was this good as a receiver. And all Jet fans are sitting there going, hello, like we've been saying this all year. Like, what do you do? A couple back-to-back chats I wanted to pull up. Kev says it's negligent to not take DT in the deepest DT class ever. And then Isaac follows it up with, and Farmer wanted to play for us. Joshua Farmer, you mentioned, and that was someone that you guys talked to even down to the Senior Bowl, correct?
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy we wanted. Like me and John were like, this was a guy who had a high, we thought had a higher floor in the sense that for what we needed. You know, you want a match for Q. This was a great match. Like I thought Farmer would have been a great match. I think that you know, he might not have been a penetrator or you know, pressure the quarterback kind of defensive tackle, but we need a guy to control, you know, to fill the gap. We need a guy not to let running backs run right through our defensive line. And I thought Joshua Farmer would have been fine in that capacity. So it's a real shock that we didn't go after him. Darius Alexander, also another guy who just lasted way too long, made no sense to me.
Yeah, he was a third round pick. You know, people were talking about him at the back end of round 1, early round 2, and he ends up going to the Giants in the 3rd round. That was very surprising to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Good on the Giants. I'll tell you that. They did a hell of a job. What a draft for them.
Yeah, I thought they had a good now, I'm not the biggest Jackson Dart guy, but
they could miss on Jackson Dart and it could still be a great draft for them. That's how good their draft was.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say there's so many other things that they did that I liked, and one of those was Darius Alexander for sure. Jake brings this up. This is something else we want to get into. We're kind of bouncing back and forth between the two topics today. Travis retired? ? I thought Cook was QB3 anyway. So since Jake is bringing it up, Jordan Travis retired yesterday from the NFL. Really sad story. You know, unfortunately, the injury he sustained at FSU forced him into early retirement. Never plays a snap for the New York Jets or a practice even for the New York Jets. And I guess good thing they signed Cook as a UDFA, because Cook or Martinez, I think, may be competing for this role.
Yeah. Hey, look, I mean, it's QB3. So they took a swing when they took Travis with the 5th round pick, right? It was a swing that we always talk about being okay with. And there were people so angry about it. And, you know, to those people, the only one thing I would say is, Will Howard, the guys, the McCord, the kid from Syracuse, all kind of Jeff fans are saying, why don't we just take a swing for 5th round? Why didn't we take a swing 5th round? You want to take a swing on those guys? We did take a swing. So of all the things we're going to be mad about the previous regime, I'm not going to be mad at them because they took a swing at a quarterback who probably could have been a 3rd round pick. Some people argue 2nd round pick, but had a serious injury. And we took a swing that maybe he'd come back and we'd get value with that pick. And it didn't work out, but it was a 5th round pick. And almost with any position, yet alone quarterback, when you take a quarterback after the 3rd round, there's a 4% chance they're going to be anything. Those are real numbers, real statistics. Since 2000, you have a 4% chance of getting anything out of a quarterback, anything at all, that you take after the 4th round. So we knew it was a long shot when we made the pick, or at least if you're following football, you had to understand that it was a long shot. So I feel more bad for the kid than I do for the team.
100%. I was going to say, like I said in my video yesterday, it's hard not to just feel for this guy who unfortunately just suffered a devastating, injury that ended his career. I've been getting into it with people a little bit today who are now, like, after the fact, mad that the Jets didn't draft a quarterback because they knew about Jordan Travis. And I'm going, like, does it really matter? They have Justin Fields. You have a legit backup in Tyrod Taylor. Okay, you want your developmental guy, fine. But one of two things is going to happen in my eyes. Either one, Justin Fields is your long-term answer, right? And great, then it's easy. You don't have to worry about the draft. The second part is, if Justin Fields is not your guy, then why don't you just try to find your next franchise quarterback in the 1st round in 2026? And like a 5th round pick from 2025 isn't really impacting either of those strategies.
They don't really come into the picture at all. You're talking about just trying to have a QB3. It may be a wild swing, right? A wild swing. Fields doesn't work out, but somehow magically this 5th round pick is going to be the pick. But I think the Jets are clearly following the same plan as the Steelers, in that they are looking to 2026 to get their franchise quarterback. They're looking for the year that's going to provide a better quarterback class. The Jets are putting a little bit of a little bit of the pie, maybe 20% hope that Fields is going to magically take some big step and take away that need for us and be like, oh my God, 25 years old, this is the system he needed. And he's right at that magical time. And boom, we have our quarterback. Yay. So they're taking that, they're leaving that little chance out there. They believe he's a bridge quarterback who could win us some game with his legs, and maybe they could build an offense around him that's functional. It's clear what we're doing. If you really care about QB3, the Giants are almost certainly going to cut that kid Tommy Cutlets or whatever. And I know people are going to say, he stinks, not for a QB3. The kid started, 8 games or something over the last 2 years and won a couple of them. For a QB3, what are you expecting? If you're down to your QB3, you're losing anyway. So I understand it just doesn't matter.
Right. Jake is saying it at the same time you are. It's also just QB3. We're fucked if he plays anyway. Like that, right. That was the point. Was Jordan Travis going to play this year? Probably not. Was Will Howard, if you drafted him, going to play this year? Probably not. And my approach going into this draft was they should just try to fill out their roster and either, give Justin Fields the chance to be the guy this year. And then if he's not, fine, find your guy next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if he would have retired, there's a possibility we may have picked a quarterback, because I don't know if they knew he was going to retire or not, because it sounded like they thought every time he came up, Aaron Glenn said, hey, you can earn a spot on the roster. Let him play and earn it in camp. Like they didn't talk like they knew he wasn't going to be able to play. So maybe they would have taken a shot. It doesn't really matter. The reality is the plan is Fields is going to play. They believe they might be able to develop an offensive around him that could win us some games. If it turns out to be a huge success, some people don't believe it's possible. Anything is possible. Then we have our quarterback. If he flops and he's just the same Justin Fields he's been, a guy you really can't have a real future with, we draft one in 26. And guess what? For one more year, we have one of the better QB2s in football. And just like everybody's saying, I think we've already established, if it goes down to QB3, it doesn't matter who it is. There was nobody it's going to be where we're going to win, have much of a hope anyway.
Yeah, Weege comes up with a good point, saying people see what the Pats did with Joe Milton, and think that's normal for any late quarterback. So they drafted a guy, in the 7th round, and then they traded him for a pick swap this year. So, okay, nice, I guess. You moved up from the 6th round to the 5th round in a draft class because you moved on from a quarterback you took in the 7th.
It was also it's you got to count it as a preseason game. It's I mean, that's a preseason game. It was against backups in a meaningless game. I think that's people have to understand. I'm not saying Milton can't ever develop into a good quarterback. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying, if we can't use that as a success story yet, except if you want to say, hey, you got them to be able. They were able to utilize him to swap up around in a draft.
100%. Stark is saying next year's quarterback class is going to be 10 times better. There's no rush. And I didn't want the Jets to force quarterback this year. It felt like to me that they would have to force a quarterback, and that I don't think would have ended well.
Yeah, the Giants were forced to. The Giants had no choice because this is why I'm so against it. It was like a bad situation. We've been in this situation. There's nothing worse than having a GM and quarterback and coach on a hot seat. There's nothing worse. Because what they're going to do is now they're going to manage everything as we have to do everything in our power to save our jobs. We can't do any balancing out of what's best for the team in the future, in the long run, right? So the Giants had to get Jackson Dart. They had to go for the guy they liked. They had to, because if they don't win, they're gone. They're fired, right? I am certainly glad that we didn't have to do that. Right? That they didn't extend JD one more year. And we were in this position where we had to be desperate and take the reach for a quarterback and gamble and roll dice when we know we're not going to win. Again, we're not going to be ready in 1 year. We're not a Super Bowl team. So if you know that next year's class is going to be better, which I happen to believe very strongly, that it's not just better, it's by miles better. Wouldn't you rather wait to the better year and have a better selection and a better choice of quarterbacks to choose?
Yep. And that's kind of what Crossfire is saying here. Shout out Crossfire hanging with us. Says quarterback next year. If nothing happens of significance this year, the Jets were smart to draft the way they did this year. I don't really have much of a disagreement here. That was my plan at the quarterback position anyway. I liked that they added a starting caliber tackle and tight end and maybe another corner as well. We spent a lot of time, I think maybe too much time on the day 3 guys. And that was kind of what I wanted to bring up today is let's not kill the Jets for their day 3 if day 1 and day 2 turns out how we think it did. Nice, Jeremy.
I'm sorry, I was reading that comment, so I was already ahead of you to the next comment.
Jake is back with the super chat and says, "Where would Ward rank in next year's quarterback class?" Interesting comment. Do you have a guess what that would be?
It's really, really difficult because we have a whole year of college football left and different things can happen. I could say last year he wouldn't be in my top 5. I could easily name quarterbacks: Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Caleb Williams. Who's the kid that went to Atlanta? Penix. Even I think I probably, I'm being really honest right now, Hennessy. I probably would have Ward ahead of Bo Nix, and Bo Nix had with good, did everything the coach asked him to do, was well coached and had a decent year. So, which is why I think I would never say that Cam Ward might not be a good quarterback. He might be a great quarterback. He might have, he might be very good. He might be this mobile quarterback. He might. I think a lot of situation though. I don't think he's like I don't think he's an elite kind of guy. He's not a Peyton Manning, a Tom Brady. He's not a guy who's destined to be great no matter what. But he's a guy who could have a very good career but he also needs the situation, right? He needs the right place. So I think if you we have quarterbacks in this league that we all agree they're good. We don't consider them top 3 great, but they're really good and they are able to compete for Super Bowls because of their situation. So I think Ward is a guy who could be really good with situation, but he would be my QB5 at best last year. At best, maybe 6. Next year, hard to say. If I had to rank him right now, I think Drew Aller. I would have taken Drew Aller over him this year, even though I think Drew Aller did a smart thing and he needs more time to develop. I would have taken Drew Aller over Cam Ward this year, without question. That's my opinion. I'm not saying you're an idiot if you don't agree. I think the kid from LSU, Nussbaumer, I think is going to be a better prospect by the time it's all said and done. Keep your eyes on the kid from Clemson that 𝐒𝐲𝐽 hates, Klubnik.
Yep.
But keep your eye on him. He earned some stripes when he did really well against Texas. He put up some good numbers and had a good year, and has some really good film. There's I don't know if he's going to come out. There was that kid that had that incredible year. I'm forgetting his name, Eric or Elik or some weird name or something. Some kid, and there's some other guys that might pop out as they always do. So I don't know. I can only say that next year I think there are at least 2 or 3 guys that are going to probably be stronger prospects than Ward was this year as far as scoring is concerned, like whatever your system for scoring prospects is.
Yeah, and we don't even know if Arch Manning is going to be coming out of the draft next year or not.
Danger wants me to say Noose's full name slowly. The quarterback for LSU, he says, say it slowly because he knows that I can't.
It's Nussmeier.
Nussmeier. What did I say? Neubaumer? I'm making him Jewish.
Close with something. I don't know what. I knew who you meant. We've been doing shows long enough where I know what you mean.
Yeah, that's how I really rely on people to just say, oh, that's just Jeremy. He meant so and so.
My favorite part of that whole discussion was you throwing 𝐒𝐞𝐞 under the bus. Any opportunity you have to throw a little jab at 𝐒𝐞𝐞, you're not afraid to do that.
No, I actually wasn't, because 𝐒𝐞𝐞 might end up being right. Like this really was me just mentioning that 𝐒𝐞𝐞 doesn't like the quarterback from Clemson. That's all. He might end up being 100% right. If the kid Klubnik stinks and he's a nobody, then all the credit in the world to 𝐒𝐞𝐞, because I just know that 𝐒𝐞𝐞 hates him. 𝐒𝐞𝐞 doesn't like him at all. So I just mentioned that.
Yeah, Mike Smith says, I would love Sellers or Manning as the next Jets quarterback. That's one that is on the list that you didn't bring up. Lenoris Sellers out of South Carolina.
Oh,
he's getting a lot of Cam Newton, Josh Allen comparisons because he's bigger. He's 6'3", 242, and runs the 4.6 40-yard dash. Obviously has the speed and the athleticism that a lot of teams are going to
Well, if
like.
you like him, everybody else you should also look at the quarterback from Georgia Tech. I don't know if his first or last name is King. It's like his first name or his last name. I don't know if somebody wants to look that up. The quarterback from Georgia Tech, somebody, Tony the GM, your favorite guy.
Yeah.
He actually made me do some film work on him. We watched him film together. He insisted.
Haynes King.
What is Haynes King?
Yeah, Haynes King.
I'm not saying anything yet. I haven't really looked at more than one bunch, like grouping of film. So I will we have a whole year to look at them. But I think people should at least be looking at this kid. There's some, like, you want to talk about a Lamar Jackson type of guy, like strong physically, great athlete, runs with the ball really well, but also has a really strong arm and makes lots of impressive throws. He has a lot of good film already, and he's still coming back now for his final year before the draft. So he's just the guy I would take a look at.
I don't blame you for that one at all. Crossfire is back. He says, I believe Fields will be our quarterback for years, and we won't be taking a quarterback next year or in 27. Please, I really hope that's the case, because that's the easiest scenario, right? You don't have to worry about, oh man, which one of these quarterbacks are the guy? Do we have to trade up? Take biggest position of need next year at another spot. I think, Fields being the answer is the best outcome possible for the Jets, because then, even next year he gets a pay bump, but that's still a pretty good value contract, even with the bump in pay.
It would be ginormous. Like, it would be such a big, amazing thing for our organization if Fields just went off this season and showed that he could be a top 15 quarterback in this league and our quarterback of the future. It's tremendous, because we're talking about not only, we don't know how we're going to finish the season. We're not only talking about using a first round pick on a quarterback and starting all over again with that and dealing with a rookie year and the whole development thing. You're talking about what might we need to trade on top of it to trade up in the draft. Like, we don't know what the cost would be. If Fields just answered that question for us, and all we have to do is restructure his contract next year to extend it so we get a little bit of a friendly discount. Are you kidding me? That would be tremendous for our organization. Then we get to take that pick next year and use it on anything that's left in our needs. Maybe another WR1 type guy. Maybe that defensive tackle, a stud. I mean, like, so many options and alternatives for us. It would be great. Maybe edge. Who knows?
Wanted to go to this one from Larry. He says the Jets love bloodlines. This is true. Ever since I saw that comment, I really started thinking about it. You have Mason Taylor this year, right? Like, Jets drafted, Jason Taylor was a Jet. They brought back Aaron Glenn this year, which I know that's not technically a bloodline, but Rex Ryan, his dad was around. Like, I feel like there's a few examples of the Jets going with the bloodlines here.
We didn't go for Mickens.
Yeah, that's one.
We didn't do that one. But yeah, I think that the bloodline for Taylor was more connected to Miami than it was the Jets. But right, like, it would have been more of a Miami thing than it would be a Jets thing. As a matter of fact, I think after his year, he went back there, and we weren't too happy. We weren't too happy about it too. It was kind of, there was some words spoken, at least from the fans' perspective. But yeah, I think I think it's cool when that happens. I think it's cool. It's interesting. I think that more important than that is when you have, when you have the offspring, when you have the son of, or grandson or nephew of a NFL player, former NFL player, or even brother, I think sometimes it makes a difference, or it tends to, maybe, I don't have the numbers, but I would guess tend to work out more because they grew up with that pedigree, like, in their household. They have more of an understanding of what it means to be a professional. I do believe that there's some truth to that. And, they probably got great coaching their whole life right from the beginning.
100%. Chris is hanging with us. An interesting question in a little bit of a different area. Says, should Jets sign free agents like Zadarius Smith, Tyler Boyd, DJ Shark, Dalton Reisner, Gerald Everett, Taven Bryan, Julian Blackman, Kazir White, Juwan Bentley, etc.? So do you think now, because the comp pick formula gets tossed out the window after the draft, the Jets will have, I believe it's a 4th and a 7th next year in comp picks, for losing Tyler Conklin and Hassan Reddick. Is there a free agent that is standing out you'd like to see the Jets add at this point now?
There's no one I think that makes a huge difference. But I, like where it's going to be, make like turn all of our feelings towards next year. But I could see it very easily, like, and be perfectly fine with it if they sign DJ Chark, or, like if they get one of these guys at a reasonable, without blowing the wad, like
Yeah.
I could see us just getting another receiver in the room with experience, or they might, I could totally see that. And if they don't, I could totally understand what they're doing. They're just gonna they're gonna look at Corley, they're gonna look at this kid Smith, they're gonna look at these two kids play. They're gonna go with they got their 3 veterans, right? They got, they brought in Reynolds, they have their veteran, they know exactly what they have in him. I think that they probably have a good idea of what they have in Lazard, better than we do, because we're sitting there going, which one? But I think they're probably basing it on just his attributes and what they see. And I think that they are probably not satisfied. I don't think Aaron Glenn said, this is the wide receiver room I want for the next 5 years. What I think he might be saying is, this is the wide receiver that we could live with in 2025.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. The one name on this list that I really like a lot is Zadarius Smith. I think the Jets could use another edge rusher. And plus, he played with Glenn last year. He got moved to the Lions in the second half of the year and had some success. So I think that would give you some Jermaine Johnson insurance also with him coming off the injury.
I wouldn't mind seeing it. I think that edge is a sneaky need position that, which is, I don't know if we're going to obviously not rely on the kid in Miami. I think that we'll bring back Watts and he'll have the opportunity. I mean, remember there were some young guys there that we have that they were undrafted free agents. And I think that it's only fair that you give them a little time to develop. A lot of people are already writing them off, but JFM was an undrafted free agent, and we didn't rush him, and we were patient, and look what he turned out to be. So, or am I wrong? Or it was Huff.
Yeah.
Huff, that was the undrafted free agent. So sometimes you have to give some time, for these guys. So, but if they sign someone like him, I would be perfectly happy with that, because I do think it is a position of need long term. Like, I think right now where we stand today, again, I'm 2025. There's, I understand there's going to be a lack of depth in some of the rooms. I get it. So I'm okay. It's a pill we have to swallow. I'm looking for something different in 2025. I want to see a positive direction. I want to see a team that, when we are winning with 5 minutes to go, can actually close the game and win, right? A team that fights hard, a team that gets the better of its players, that sticks to a game plan where if we say we're going to run the ball, we actually run the ball, and we, and have more balance and time of possession, just improve things as a football team. And then as we do that, that's when we're going to start getting really picky, saying, man, we're almost there, but we really need another edge, or we really need another receiver. And, if they want to do it this year and make a move on one of these guys, then I'm all for it. But again, I'm not like sitting here with, out of breath panting saying this year is going to be like, what are we doing? I'm not screaming about it.
No, the word that I keep tossing around is evaluation year. I don't think it's a tank. Tank is too harsh. I think they're going to be better than that. But evaluation, seeing what is working, what's not working on the roster, and then kind of evaluate from there which direction they have to go in next year's offseason.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many guys that that they're evaluating, that or decisions that they have to be making, right? They have to see what Malachi Corley is, right? Very clearly. Jermaine Johnson, they have to see what he is now. I mean, I think at the very least, not to scare people, I think he's going to be a good edge setter. I don't know about the sacks. They have to see. What is Will McDonald going to progress to? Is he going to be a specialist only? Or is he going to is he going to come back, 5 to 10 more pounds of muscle and suddenly start to round out his game a little bit better? Like, there's so many question marks. There's so many things. Cisco, he's being evaluated. Is he going to be the safety of the future for us? We're going to find out. The running back situation, what's going to happen with Hall? Are we going to let just Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis take over? Which of the guards are we going to keep? Simpson or AVT? Both of them? None? These are so many things that just need to be answered for this team moving forward that there's no way we're going to have an answer for before 2025.
Nose Kills is hanging with us. Thank you for the support. Nose Kills says, partly copium, but I'm actually excited to see what we'll do with the running backs and a running quarterback. A quarterback that doesn't audible to a 1-yard pass every second play. a little shot there at Aaron Rodgers at the end. But look, we know Justin Fields has his flaws. We've seen him in the NFL now for 3 or 4 years, right? But I think there is this level of excitement because any second he could take a play to the house, and the Jets didn't have a player like that. And I don't know what he's going to be as a passer in 2025. Nobody does. Now, to his credit, he has gotten better year over year. It's still not enough where you feel great about him being a franchise quarterback, but I'm at least excited to watch him and just, see what he is at this point.
You know what's better for a defense than any one player you can add to that defense?
What's that?
An offense that wins time of possession for 35 minutes. You
Yeah.
get me an offense that can run the ball effectively and eat the clock and win the possession of the time possession 34-26 week after week. That is as good a gift as you can give to the defense as any player. And, we don't talk about over the last couple of years, even when our defense was strong, how much they would eventually break because our offense was 1, 2, 3 and out, 1, 2, 3 and out. And eventually even the best defenses give. We saw that in Denver or against Denver when we were at the game miserable, that we were only able to ask so much of our freaking defense until finally it gave out because they were on the floor. Because we were 1, 2, 3 and out every single drive after drive after drive. So I am 100% with nose kills. I'm super excited to have hopefully a new coaching and a quarterback that's not going to keep audibling out of the run saying, well, no, we got a man-on-man situation though. It's more than just the situation of that play. It's a game plan thing. There is a benefit. We all saw it with Parcells was, the freaking living example of it, but look at Baltimore if you want an example of it in today's football. Run the ball. Run the ball. It's not going to work every play. We're going to have some drives that go 1, 2, 3 and out, and people are going to get frustrated. Who cares? We were 1, 2, 3 and out all the time anyway. At least eat some of the clock up this time. At least let your defense rest a little bit this time. So run. If we're going to compete at all, if we're going to be a playoff team next year, if that actually happened, it will be because we were a good running team. It's not going to happen because we were magically passing the ball well. It's going to be because we were running the ball and controlling the football.
They have a really good shot to go from the least amount of rushing attempts in the league to the most in 1 year, in like that 1 year span this year.
I mean, we have to. That was the team was built for it. That was our identity. And I understand his stats were the third best in any quarterback in Jets history, but it didn't work. We didn't win games. Because sometimes it's more than just some stats. Sometimes it's about the game plan. It's about why did we win more games when Zach Wilson was the quarterback, barely being a game manager and putting up no stats and throwing 145 yards? Well, one is we played great defense, but we also managed to just keep the drives going somehow, right? It wasn't in his bad games. This wasn't the case, but in those wins, it was because we weren't 1, 2, 3 and out, 1, 2, 3 and out. Breece Hall was making big plays. We were getting help from the running game. It's more than just the statistics of a quarterback. Sometimes it has to do with the way you manage and play a football game. And that has a lot to do with the coaches. I'm not blaming Aaron Rodgers, but I think that one of the reasons he's not a Jet anymore is because they didn't want that conflict. They didn't want to have that fight with him about, we don't want you audibling out of plays. We want to run the ball 35 to 40, whatever it is. Like Breece Hall needs to get 22 to 30 touches a game on top of what Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis are going to get.
100%. Looking forward to that difference. Dano with an interesting one. Thoughts on Michael Carter II now having to cover Elijah Moore? So Elijah Moore signed with the Buffalo Bills this week. Does that strike fear into the heart of Jeremy here?
Well, things tend to bite me in the ass. The fact that he was my boy, is something that might it doesn't strike fear into me, but it definitely might be something. I don't know. I mean, he's pretty deep into his career to all of a sudden become an impact player, but it's not like it hasn't happened. I mean, we saw Correll Patterson do it by going from wide receiver to special teams to then suddenly a running back, wide receiver, kind of weirds, versatile, Mr. Versatile type guy. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't think Elijah Moore is going to be any more than just a slot receiver that could hurt you. Like if you don't cover him right, like Michael Carter's got to do his job. I think Elijah Moore's always been a guy. If you don't cover him well, or if you forget about him, he's gonna hurt you.
Yeah, he's explosive, and the route running was there. I was surprised that he didn't work out with the Jets. I was very happy with his rookie season. I thought there was a lot of potential there, and then it's kind of gone off the rails. But even in Cleveland, like his best year was 640 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's not like he's been tearing it up over there.
Yeah, no, he just that was the thing. I followed him because he was my guy. I had his jersey, and I said, let's see what he does. And the one thing I could say about our coaching staff that we hated from the past few years about them not giving players a chance and this and that. Most of the players that's last regime let go or didn't give we didn't think got a fair chance, didn't do anything in their next place anyway. Like it turned out they weren't wrong about Denzel Mims. It turns out now. Greenbean would say, no, we ruined him. But I don't believe that. I think the fact that Denzel Mims is playing in the freaking summer league or whatever in stadiums shows that they were right about him. Right. And apparently they were right about Elijah Moore. They weren't right. They weren't right about drafting him when they drafted him. Oh. But they certainly were right about we drafted the wrong guy. So, I mean, what's there to say? Like I think I'm afraid of him as I am any slot receiver that's perfectly capable of hurting you if you don't defend them well.
Jerome, my guy Jerry's in here. Remember, last year's OC literally said he didn't realize how to use Breece Hall. Competent coaching will help out more than anything. I do think we're underrating the coaching change a little bit. I don't think we're putting enough stock into that.
I know. There's no question about it. It's night and day. I mean, we had a terrible coach, man. And I didn't see it for a long time. Like I was still hopeful, but he makes our defense good. If we could just get our offense together. Last year exposed how terrible it was. And I know Saleh was only there for like 5 games of it, but it was very clear that it was going to be the same thing. Like it was the same nonsense. And I think they were exposed because they lost control of the football team. It became Rodgers' team. And I'm not trying to attack Aaron Rodgers, but there's a difference between having a Brady or having a Manning as a leader in the huddle and then on the team than as the quarterback having the most powerful voice and being the coach of the team. Like, let's look at Kansas City. Andy Reid is still in charge of that team, right? They have arguably a future Hall of Fame quarterback, obviously, in Patrick Mahomes, but Andy Reid is the coach. And that wasn't the case with us last year.
Nope.
So it was terrible. So now we're going from terrible to maybe some hope that, that Aaron Glenn's going to be a good coach. I've liked everything he's done. Not maybe the decision. Like I'm not sitting there saying he was right, definitively about the decision about Rodgers, the decision about any decision he's made. I'm talking about the way he's gone about it. Like assertive, confident, with strength, and with a very clear message to the football team and to the locker room. The coach is in charge. And I think more importantly than the talent, if you want to start the regime starting over again, if you want to start from somewhere, you have to start there. A coach that owns the locker room. That's where it starts. Then you start worrying about the talent.
Jake says, still praying we were wrong on Corley. Imagine if he can just be serviceable in the slot. It'll feel better that our one wide receiver pick this year can't catch. Where do you stand with Malachi Corley? Are you holding out hope for him to be the guy? Like what's your headspace with him?
I mean, it's so hard because we don't know what happened. Like the one play he got that we saw, he was good, right? I don't want to overcredit him because if you watch that play, every Jet, the other 10 Jets on the field, executed that play as incredibly as it could be executed. I mean, like the hole that he was given, everyone did their job. He practically walked to the end zone. Now, he didn't. He showed his speed and his explosiveness. Then he dropped the ball. After that, we never got to see anything other than one thing. There's one thing we know about this kid. He was a willing blocker because in the very few snaps he got, he blocked really well and was rated really high for it, which is something because it shows that his attitude was still, like some of these wide receivers refuse to block. So at least this kid, when he came in, was willing to block in the few reps he got. He wasn't being a baby saying they're not throwing me the ball and sitting around and not doing his job. He was working his tail off on the field because in the reps he got, he was a good blocker, which means it shows about attitude, right? So I think he's just a blank slate. Picture him just like another guy that we drafted. Like I really, with a little bit of concern, because what happened, was it the coaching or was it him? A little bit more of a question mark. But I'm not giving up on the fact that he could be a very, very good weapon, like out of the slot, like a guy. When I say slot, I'm not saying it as an insult. Like you could be a slot and be very effective and make a team a much better football team. Like there are some very good slots in the NFL, especially one that doesn't get tackled easily, that could fight for those first downs. So I'm very hopeful for Malachi Corley, but I'm also really concerned.
Yeah, I like how you went. I'm going to stand right in the middle of this fence here and not go too far over one way or the other. I think he could be a good gadget player. I don't know if he's ever going to be like a fully functioning wide receiver, where he's like a starting number 2 wide receiver, but as a third or fourth option who maybe you give the ball on an end around, you throw him a screen, you get him the ball in space, like what the Chiefs did with McCole Hardman or guys like that. I think there's a path to success for Malachi Corley. It's all contingent on what you define as success too. If he's your 4th wide receiver, I would view that as successful as a 3rd round pick, but others might not.
Yeah, he doesn't come off right now unless he has a major change. Even in college, when you watch his film, we all said, like any scout would have told you, that Malachi Corley needed to work on his route running. Especially like if you wanted to like perceive him as a boundary receiver. So I think if he has success, is what you're saying. I think if he has success, it's going to be as a slot receiver. I don't think you're going to see him as a true WR2 boundary receiver, but that's okay. I can't say it enough. That's okay. It's very helpful for a team to have a really good slot receiver who could also be a yards after catch type guy, a guy who runs through people, physical. He can make big plays. He could be that guy. If he works out, a good slot receiver could be your MVP of the Super Bowl one day. It's possible, right? So let's not underestimate that. If he, from when he we trade up in the 3rd round to get him. If he, from where he was picked, turned out to be a great slot receiver that helps us win football games, that has a full career for us, then we got great value out of that pick.
I'm with you on that. I'm totally with you on that one. Yeti chimes in, says, I feel Corley, Brees, Taylor, and Allen will have good seasons with Fields. Now, Yeti doesn't specify, but I'm going to ask you this question that I have reading the comment. Is that because of how Fields is as a rusher that's going to make those guys better this year?
I would think that the way it would help Corley is when, and this is just a theory on him. I'll just start with him. When you have a receiver that, I think even like a Denzel Mims is a good example. When you have a receiver that is not a crisp route runner, is not the amazing, incredible at getting off the line, like kind of like a different skill set than a Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is a precision. He's a surgeon, right? And he's quick off the line. I think guys that aren't like that aren't as quick off the line, that is not a crisp route runner, I think that the pendulum swings towards them when you have a guy buying time in the pocket, when the play breaks down, and suddenly you have receivers loose, running loose. I think a guy like Corley could benefit in a situation like that, because then it's about athleticism. And it's about just, and if a guy like Fields is running out of the pocket and then running toward the line of scrimmage, and Corley comes across the field in front of him and he gets him the ball, that's when Corley could be incredibly dangerous, because the play is broken down. And that's the kind of guy, when he gets the football in his hands, if the safeties aren't in the right position anymore, he's the guy who could take it, he could take it home. So I think that I could see why Corley would benefit. You'd have to help me with Brees and the running backs. Like I think that Taylor could benefit for the same reason I just said Corley could benefit. But Brees and Allen, the running backs, why they would benefit, I don't know. I'm not saying that they wouldn't, but I would need help with that. I'd need to know. I would want Yeti's theory on it, and I'm not saying he's wrong or right. I just don't have it in my brain. I can't think of the take of why.
I'm with you on that one. Duncan has a good question here. I feel like there's a cliche that gets thrown around a lot. He says, what does it mean for a pro wide receiver to work on his route running? It's like saying a major league shortstop needs to work on his fielding.
We say it all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think when it comes to, it's the same thing for the fielding and for the route running. It comes down to fundamentals. Something is off with his mechanics or fundamentals.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees wanted to make Miguel Andujar a better fielder because if they were able to, he's a really good hitter, but they never were able to, and that's kind of damaged his career, right? So they tried. They said, but we all, you know, I follow all the New York teams. I'm saying I remember Andujar was a perfect example of something you needed to do with a player to make them more valuable. I think we see it all the time, but like with wide receiver, absolutely, there are wide receivers that are better route runners than others. Garrett Wilson, Jefferson, you know, obviously I'm naming these great guys, and Malik Neighbors, but they're surgeons. They're just fantastic route runners. But then you have guys like Mike Evans, and I'm not saying he's a bad route runner, but that's not his game. He's not as precise. He's not the surgeon. Right? He does it with his size, right? He does it physically. He has other ways. He doesn't create the separation, but he still has success. What we're saying about Corley is we know his strength. We know what he brings to the table. He can catch and he can run with the football. He has great instincts, pick up the blocks, dangerous in space with the football. What's not as strong for him is the route running. And the reason being is he was a running back for most of his life. Wide receiver is more of a newer position to him. And although he's dangerous, you know, and has a lot of strengths that made him worth drafting, that we took a shot at him, he just simply isn't average to above average to great route running. So that's the part of his game that he needs to work on.
Right. And like everyone has strengths, and I'm glad you were kind of going through that with your examples. I think it was helpful. Like some guys are good because they are elite route runners. Some guys are just going to beat you because they're bigger and stronger than you. Calvin Johnson, right? Like just bigger, stronger, better than anyone out there on the field. And like some guys are just faster. Tyreek Hill, faster than everybody at that point. So I think it's kind of just more strength dependent. And he does follow it up saying, I guess my point is you're a pro if you can't read the playbook and follow the route at this point. Which,
yeah, but it's not saying you can't follow the route. It's not that. It's not a magical thing that you could just do. It's the cut. It's how hard you could cut. It's how fast you can come out of the cut. It's not that simple. Like it is something you could improve. Some of it is natural. Some people have it naturally, and that's a beautiful thing. And there are some people who have to work really hard to get it. But it's like you're saying you're a pro. But if you have 100 pros, there's going to be the bottom 20%, the middle 40%, and the top 20% in any skill. So we're saying that he, as a pro, is right now he's in the bottom 20% of that skill. So it's just something that has to, like, for him to be great, he has to develop. But it's not simply you're a pro, you should be able to read the playbook and run the route. It's not. He can run. I'm not saying he can't run the route. If you tell him to post, I'm not saying he doesn't know how to run a post. But there are certain players that when they break into that post, they do it faster. They're able to cut and accelerate faster. So it's just the way you execute the route. It's just more complicated than simply, oh, I'm able to run the route.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other sports comparisons. Like, okay, hockey. They all skate, but some are better skaters than others, like speed wise. Some guys there in the league, they don't skate well, but they have a great shot and they can score goals, or some are really good defensively. Like everyone has what makes them great. And obviously you want to be the best at every single portion of that, but route running is just one of the many things that makes a wide receiver great.
Right. Boxers. Why do some boxers have better jabs than others? Some boxers win because they got the power punch, but they're not known as a jabber. Some boxers, Marvin Hagler, won fights because of his jab, right? Like, so we could have said, but Larry Holmes, you're George Foreman, you're he was a good jabber, so I forgot. But Larry Holmes, you're a professional fighter. Why don't you just jab better? Well, it's not always the case. It's not always that easy. It's sometimes, there's some natural ability and like some things that you just have to work at. But I do think that the thing to be excited about Corley is this is not a kid who's been working on it for 20 years. This is a kid who was a running back who now is learning how to play wide receiver, and he was so gifted at it in college when they changed him. He was so gifted, he got drafted into the NFL because he was so good at what he is strong at. That, you know what I mean? That right away he was the NFL level that, that he dominated college, that we thought he could be an NFL player. Now the question just becomes, can he develop? I mean, and I can answer it a million ways. I mean, we watch rookies get better throughout their careers all the time. So they're all developing different parts of their game.
One more from Those Kills here on a super chat says, how you run a route also depends on the other wide receivers' routes and the defense formation and field position, small nuances. Another valuable point. Not every route is built the same. Not every receiver runs the route the same way, but also the down and distance, what defender you're going up against. Like there's so many variables, I guess, to what, the route is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, we don't know that Malachi Corley is not able to or bad at it. He wasn't asked to do it ever, even in college. He wasn't asked to do it. So we're trying to develop him, right? And ask him to do something new that he doesn't have a lot of experience doing. He might end up being an amazing route runner. I think that's why they picked him, hoping he would. So we don't know the answer to that yet because we had a terrible coaching staff. He never got a chance to be on the field. We don't know what it looked like in practice. We don't know the real reason. We don't know if it was attitude or skill. We know nothing. So we're going to find out, and hopefully he's able to excel in that part of his game like he has apparently done in a lot of other parts of his game.
Yeah, 100%. So very curious to see how he looks in training camp going into this season. Another fun episode in the books with my guy, Jeremy. I love hanging out with you every Thursday, my friend. I look forward to it next week. It's
great. It's great. It's always great. I'll be, it's going to be some weirdness next week. So we'll see. I'll talk to you about it.
Okay. Totally fair. We will talk about it, but that'll do it for us on this one. I'm Matt. He's Jeremy, and we will catch you next time.